time.
Sure.
And yeah. So, hello everyone. I welcome you all on behalf of Naukri Learning to today's live session on 7 mistakes to avoid when making a career transition. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, career transitions can have different meaning for different people, and for some, it can mean like a change of role, a change of job, or for others, a promotion, returning from a maternity leave, etc. However, one thing remains constant, that is the fear and anxiety of not knowing how to navigate these changes. So one may end up making costly mistakes out of confusion and fear of failure, which may have like long-term implications as well on careers. So, through the unique association of Naukri learning and conscious career choices today, we want to help you avoid these mistakes by being aware of them beforehand. So it's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speakers for today. So Anita Sachdeva and Harsh Johari are with us. They are certified leadership and career coaches with global experience. And Anita has more than 3 decades of work experience and is a certified PPC award winner. While Harsh is a 4 times TEDx speaker and has more than 26 years of professional experience behind him. Having transitioned careers and roles across industries and geographies, they want to share their learnings with us today. So, before we start, just let me remind you to post your questions in the chat box below. And the Q&A will be happening at the end, and some of the questions that you have shared at the time of registration will also be addressed during the session. And don't forget to visit the link of the course description. And so, without much delay, let's get started. And over to you, Anita and Harsh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much all for joining, and thank you, Naukri Learning, for providing us this opportunity. Before we start the discussion, quick reminder, we have developed a program called Conscious Career Choices Workshop. It is brought in partnership with Naukri Learning. It's a free course. We'll leave the link for the course in the chat. Please go ahead and register and do the course. It's a course which can help you discover new career options for yourself. So just please go and check that out. So today's topic is about career transitions. And transition could be a personal transition, could be a professional transition. Personal transition could mean any life event, right? For example, marriage or becoming a parent or relocating to another city because of family reasons or any health related issues. All this could create a transition in your life. And then of course we have professional transitions like changing a job or relocating to a different location within the same company. Now, transition by definition means change, and any form of change brings in a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, right? And if you look at the narrower definition of transition in context to career, it could mean different things to different people. It could mean changing role within the same company, moving to a different function. It could mean getting promoted to a newer role within the same company. It could mean moving from an individual contributor to a team manager or vice versa. It could mean changing companies, remaining the same function. It could mean changing companies and function as well, different industries completely. It could mean moving from a private job to a public sector or public sector to a private job. It could mean coming back to work from a break. Break could be for maternity, sabbatical, or some family reason. So what you'll find is that transition could mean different things to different people. And each of these transitions will create similar set of challenges in terms of how do you come back and how do you integrate back to work. Now, whenever there is a transition happening, it also happens at 3 different levels. First is a transition in relationship, right? Because when you join a new job or get promoted to a new role or join a new company, obviously your peers are changing, your manager is changing, your team members are changing, your stakeholders are changing. So there is a change in the relationship status. The second transition happens in terms of skill sets, because whenever you're looking at new roles, new companies, new culture, there would be a need to develop certain new skill sets which are relevant for that new job. And the third transition could be a mindset, right? In terms of what is a new mindset you need to develop to be successful in the new role. So keep these 3 levels of transitions in mind as we continue the discussions. So before we proceed further, I want all those who joined us today, can you type in the chat box what is the type of transition you are either currently going through or you're planning in the near future? Is it you're looking for changing companies? Is it you're looking for changing roles within the company? You're looking to change industries? You're looking to take a break? You're looking to come back from a break? What is the type of transition you have in mind? If you can type your response in the chat box, maybe we'll wait for 30 seconds, 60 seconds to see what people are thinking in terms of transition. Okay, let's give it a 30-second window for people to respond. So all those who joined in, if you can just type in the chat box, what is the type of transition you have in mind or you are currently going through? Ashok says career. Career means, Ashok, I'm assuming you are looking for changing jobs, but remaining within the same industry. I assume that's correct. Okay, while we wait for responses, Anita, why don't we kickstart the discussion on the career mistakes? So the remaining part of the discussion, we want to focus on specific mistakes we all want you to take note of and avoid, so that when you are transitioning into a new career or new role, you are able to successfully integrate and not end up paying heavily for these mistakes. Anita, over to you.
Change, the most dreaded word. Change in any form is a transition, and it brings with it challenges. And like we talked earlier, it can be relational, skill, and mindset. And strategically managing it makes all the difference, or it can lead to confusion, fear, and worse, loss of self-esteem. So let's talk of some common mistakes people make during transitions, which can impact potentially your future growth prospects and how you can avoid them. So the first mistake, here we go, trying to find the right time for a transition. You wait for the right time and you keep on waiting. Sometimes opportunities are right in front of you, but you miss out. Why? Because generally, who wants change? Staying in a familiar environment is comfortable and it feels the risk of losing the job are low. You will have a network of friends and are reluctant to leave your work family. Perhaps your work is close to home. Your personal life is in rhythm as well, and you're very comfortable. So when the opportunities show up, which can potentially challenge you, you may think it is not the perfect time to make a move. So then when is a perfect time to move? If you know and plan it properly, you will be successful and grow. But just waiting, most often that time never comes. Life happens, opportunities are lost. Would you like to write in the chat? Are you waiting for some event or something before you plan a career change? Did you have the kind of a time frame in mind? You want to share your thoughts?
I mean, all those who joined, I'll request you to participate as much as possible in the chat box, because so that we'll know what's really happening, what's going in your mind, and then towards the end we can address some of your specific queries. So, so please contribute to the discussion, because as you contribute, we all will learn and sort of progress together.
Thanks. So mistake number 2, most people switch jobs when they are not doing well in their careers, when they are in stagnancy, when the growth is stopped and they're feeling stuck. That is a big mistake. Why? Because you are not doing well in your career, generally your motivation levels are low, morale is low. You're coming from a place of need of getting out of a job and getting some other job. So when you approach a transition from this angle, it could happen that you may not even get a job or a role which you're truly looking for. You may potentially have to make a lot of compromises, which can derail your career and your career trajectory. That's why the right time is important. And what is that? The best time to make a career transition would be when you're really doing well in your career. And this may seem counterintuitive, but if you're really doing well, and if you're at the peak of your career, your motivation is high, your energy is high, everything is going great for you, you will have a lot of tailwinds behind you. you will have the pull factor. You are in a position to negotiate better terms. And with a win attitude, chances of you succeeding in that role quickly are much higher. Now, if you're planning a career transition and not sure that you should be in the next career, do check out our program, Conscious Career Choices. It's developed in partnership with Deferring Learning. It's a free program to help you discover new career opportunities. It's free, so check it out. The links are in the chat.
Thanks, Anita, for sharing that. So we discussed two mistakes. First mistake is don't wait for the perfect time to make a career change, or else you'll keep on waiting, right? So think of as and when opportunities are arriving, and be ready to make that leap, right? The second mistake we discussed was, most of people want to change career when they're not doing well, and we are actually saying, think of career change when you're doing well, so that you have a greater chance of succeeding in your new role. Now we'll come to the third mistake which people make, and all of these mistakes are coming from our own experiences and experience of coaching our clients. The third mistake which people make is they make their experience their baggage. Now, what do I mean by that? Especially if you work in a specific industry or you're very experienced and very senior, then you almost develop a specific way of thinking, a specific mindset, and you assume that when you go into your new role, the same mindset, the same style of working will also be applicable. So when you go to a new company or a new job, typically a lot of us end up saying, in my previous role we used to do like this, or in my previous company we used to do like this. So we carry all that baggage with us in the new role, which typically does not go well with everybody around you, because a new company, a new team, a new function will have different style of working, and you need to adjust to that. Now, what you need to be careful is that what part of your experience is relevant to the new role and what is not relevant. And that's a very conscious choice you have to make, saying which one I need to take forward versus which one I need to let go of. Because everything which I know may not be relevant in my new role. So do not make your experience your baggage when you make a career transition. And something related to that is also a lot of people approach new jobs with the sense that I know everything, I know it all attitude. So you, in a way, you close yourself from learning. And we know that any new job, whether it's even in the same company, it could be a new team, it could be a new process. There's always a lot of learning which is needed to be successful into any new role, even if it's within the same company. So be very open to learning new things, rolling up your sleeves, getting your hands dirty, understanding the nitty-gritties of your process, and make sure that you apply the filter of relevancy. What is relevant from my past experience, whether it's skills, and what is not relevant, a mind to learn and to adapt into the new role. That's the third mistake. Do not make your experience a baggage. The fourth mistake people make when they're making career transition is that they take a lot of time to settle into a new role. And we all know, right, whenever we are hired into a new job, there is a specific purpose we are hired. And the more senior you are typically expected to perform from the day go, right? You have to perform. And some people, when they're transitioning, they will take their own sweet time to settle down, which sometimes backfires, because when you're getting into a new environment, you need to make sure that you secure some early wins. You secure some quick wins to establish your credibility and reputation. That is very important, right? So even it's a completely new role, new industry, as soon as you join, think about what are the wins I'm going to secure in maybe 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, so that people start seeing the impact which you can create, right? While you can learn the process in parallel, but don't be afraid to say, okay, I'm going to achieve these things over a period of time. So establishing quick impact is important through early wins. So that's the fourth mistake. Do not take too long to settle into the new role. Anita, over to you.
Yes. And another thing I'd like to add is that part of the settling down process can be getting to know your stakeholders, grab some other opportunities, and besides the wins, and establish your credibility very quickly. So before we move to the fifth mistake, I just want to acknowledge Jagdish, Jagdish wants to change career from experience in mechanical engineer to data science, machine learning engineer. Jagdish will be addressing this at the end of the session, so hang in there. We have some thoughts for you. So, fifth mistake is ignoring stakeholder management. This is it seems like small, but people confuse networking with stakeholder management, and they are not the same. Maybe Harsh, you can share your story over here quickly about when you moved from a Navy captain to go to Goldman Sachs, and perhaps that will be useful here.
Yeah, sure. So I came from a very different background, from the marine background, very hierarchical command and control structure. We had orders to follow, but when I came into a corporate job, I didn't know what is stakeholder management. I didn't even know who my stakeholders are for a long period of time. All I knew was about my immediate managers and my peers. But when you look at global organizations today, they're highly matrix, right? The environment is very dynamic. You'll have regional stakeholders, you'll have functional stakeholders, you'll have global stakeholders, and all these stakeholders will have a role to play in advancement of your career. Now, if you don't even know who your stakeholders are and you don't connect with them, then somewhere you're losing out, right? Because there is one thing to know your stakeholders, and your stakeholders also have to know you. So I struggled a lot in the beginning to really understand what is all this, but once I understood this concept, I really made sure that I have an active plan to manage my stakeholders. I knew who my stakeholders were. I used to have regular one-to-one meetings with them. I used to make sure I understand what are their priorities, how is my work getting aligned with their priorities. I used to give them regular updates of what I'm doing. So they were fully plugged in as to what is really happening, and I was plugged in into what is happening in their business, right? So that is very important.
And I had similar experiences in the 80s. I moved from India to go to London, and there was no internet, and I had no idea how to work with people who were not like me, and they were all from people from Europe, and mostly from Europe. And I had no idea if I was reporting to somebody in Germany. There was another client aspect from Procter & Gamble who was in, say, London or in Egypt. I had no idea who I was supposed to be talking to and who were making decisions. It was like a spider's web that I had to figure out then. But finally I did. And when I needed a mentor, I knew who to reach out to. And then they became my supporters when during presentations and also my career. So planning, like we talked about transitions, whether it is moving to a new job when you're at the height of your career, and planning to be able to be visible with your stakeholders is something you need to think through, and also have an art and a science of being able to ask politely, as well as being able to be slightly more assertive at the same time. And bosses who are leaders, if you're persistent and you are offering value at the same time, and they know the reason why you're approaching them, they are more than open to talk to you, because after all, they are here to help people, and the people succeed and appoint successors at the same time. Okay, besides that, understanding the politics that are playing within the organization, is that I heard a lot of my coaching clients saying, I work hard, it should be rewarded. And I said, hard work wins its performance, it wins something. But how do you know that you are being championed in the boardroom? And does anyone want to share anything about this? Maybe a story, something that happened to them, and any kind of learnings that you want to share on the stakeholder management? You can put it in the chat. Or maybe later we could talk more about it. The other mistake is people paying too much attention on the job and ignoring other aspects of life. Working the extra hour and working hard on weekends, ignoring family, ignoring your health. And then it becomes a habit. And then people expect you to be in the office and answer your calls on the weekends. You become too available. And then when you want to stop it, it doesn't nobody wants to stop it, then you become the bad person. So create a sense of balance in any transition. And yes, you want to have the wins, and yes, you want to prove credibility, and yes, you want visibility, but not at the expense of being too available, which is a big thing that mistake that people make, is just making themselves too available 24/7. And in fact, people always say that if you cannot finish your work in 8 hours, then there is something not particularly great with you. Are you busy, but are you productive? That is the kind of message that can also go to the people. So mistake number 7 now. Assuming that the career path will be similar in previous organization and your manager will take care of it. This one, I've had global leaders who move to India and they say, why would I create a career plan for my people? I am the MD of the company, but why do people come to me for their career plan? Can't they not do it on their own? And it's always shocking for them because they want to give as much autonomy as possible. And so what happens as a result? Are you deferring your charge to your manager? Or are you taking the charge? Are you planning your career growth, or again giving it to someone else so let it be an unplanned growth? Now, most people assume the managers will do it for them. And yes, there are some great managers, and yes, they will support you. But the importance of being able to take charge and being able to share with the manager, this is your timeline as to when do you want to achieve what, and therefore what is it that I need to do to be able to be visible for that and do something to get the next promotion. Your boss may say, why don't you do some extra work with the global team or take some extra projects that are not part of you, become visible. That could be one of the things he may potentially recommend you. So when you start having active conversations about your career, promotions, and career path, that's when you take charge of your career, and the leadership team and your managers would like you for that. Plus, you make difference to your own life, and you propose what you want out of life. Your manager would say, yes, here's a leader and a great person I can appoint as a successor. So over to you, Harsh.
Yeah, sure. So before we do a quick recap, I just want to check with people who have joined us. Does any of these mistakes resonate with you? Have you made some mistakes in your own career when you were transitioning careers? Anything you want to share from your experience or experience from your colleagues, and something which you want to share with us where we all can learn from your experience? If anybody wants to share, you can type in the chat box, please.
And while you're writing, Sumit asked, why would my stakeholders help me transition? Sumit, the stakeholders may potentially not help you transition, but what you have to do is reach out to the stakeholders to help yourself transition with ease. And why would they help you? It's how you make your case. So for example, you could show them how you want to support them. Maybe your plan for the early wins. What are you planning to achieve in the first 90 days? What is it that you plan to deliver? And they like to see future thinkers, out-of-box thinkers. And they say, oh, wow, we got a good hire. So it's more about putting forth your ideas. And they may not accept it all, but at least they would have heard you, now they know your name.
And Sumit, just to clarify, so we are not, so there are two aspects of it. One is who will help you during the transition, right? This could be your immediate manager and your immediate team members. But once you transition into a new role or a new company, you need to be aware who are going to be my stakeholders, with whom I should engage, who are going to take the decision as far as my career advancement is concerned. And you need to actively engage with them. That's what the thing is. Now your question, why should my stakeholders be interested in me? Because your success is indirectly tied to their success also, right? Because they are part of it, right? It's not that you are working in isolation and they are working in isolation, right? Let's say you have a functional manager who sits somewhere in a different location. Now your success and his success or her success is tied, is interlinked. It's not separate. Remember that, right? So when you're working in an organization as a team, all of you have to be interested in each other's success and play a big role, right? That's how things work, right? So I see. Yeah, so we'll take up some of the questions later on. So let me quickly do a recap so that we can jump to the Q&A. So we discussed 7 specific career mistakes. So far, I'll do a quick recap. The first mistake is don't try to time the move too well. Don't wait for a perfect time. Be open to opportunities, even if they are coming at a time when you're not necessarily ready from your sense, but it might work for you. So then don't wait for the perfect time to make a move, right? Because you might miss on opportunities. So that's the first mistake. Second mistake is interlinked is don't try to change careers when you're not doing well, because that is where your motivation energy is low. You may not have enough choices, or you may not be able to negotiate. Try to think of change when you're doing well. Now, it does not mean that you have to change, but if at all you're thinking of change, that is a good time to think of change when you're really doing well, so that it improves your chances of success into the new role. The third mistake is don't make your experience of baggage. Don't carry all your experience into a new role. See the relevancy of experience, see the relevancy of skill sets, and be open to learning new things in the new role. The fourth mistake is don't take too much time to settle down, right? Think about how can I secure early wins to establish my credibility and reputation and show impact as early as possible. The fifth mistake is don't assume that how your career used to get managed in the previous organization, that will work here as well, right? Be ready to take charge of your career, even though it's a transition, but very soon you will be part of the system. Very soon you will be sort of compared, performance will be benchmarked with everybody else around you. So the sooner you take charge of your career and progression, the better it is. The sixth mistake is really when you're changing jobs, sometimes there is too much focus on that job and you just want to prove yourself. So you end up creating a disharmony or disbalance between other dimensions of your life. You think about one extra hour at work or one weekend will not harm me. And soon that becomes a habit because you are still into the mood that I need to prove, I need to work hard. And somehow you'll find that your life goes out of balance. So make sure that one is you're aware that I need to maintain that balance as much as possible and not stretch completely into one direction. And the last mistake really is don't confuse between networking and stakeholder management. Stakeholder management means knowing who your real stakeholders are, who are the decision makers, and actively engaging with them so that they play an active role in your career progression. Those are the 7 mistakes. We'll share those mistakes in a document. We'll share the link in the chat box. You can download the document that has all these 7 mistakes. And from each of these mistakes, you will end up creating some action item for you if you're already in a transition, or you can keep the document for reference in future whenever you're thinking of transition. So that's really from our side in terms of what are the 7 career mistakes. These are the most common mistakes we have seen people make. And hopefully this will help you in successfully transitioning and integrating into a new role whenever you're planning that transition. And a final reminder before we jump into Q&A is there is a program called Conscious Career Choices Workshop. It's an online program brought in partnership with Naukri Learning. It's a free course. We'll share the link in the chat box. Please go and register for that course because that course will help you a lot in terms of your self-discovery and discovering new career options for yourself. So that's really it from our side. We are going to look at Q&A now. I have some questions which people have submitted. Of course, there are a lot of questions submitted. I have picked up a few of them, which are sample representative of most of the questions. So hopefully we can address those. And then we'll take some live questions as well. I know it's a bit late, so we'll try to wind up in the next 10 minutes. So the first question I have is, which was pre-submitted, was, I have 15 years of experience in oil and gas department. I have a fear to move towards project or proposal side. And I have a fear of also to move into team management role. So somebody who's technical role, but now he wants to probably move into a team management role, but he fears it. Anything you have for suggestion?
Yes. We all wonder if we are capable of any other thing than besides what we have done. And the most success that has happened with people is when they decided, okay, this is what I've studied, this is what I've done, but what do I really want? It is that passion not because it makes more money, but it's because I have a passion for it. So, for example, one of our clients decided to quit his job, Prashant, and became a professional photographer. And I was a high-flying advertising professional working in across the globe. And one day I just quit my six-figure salary and said, "Okay, no more. It doesn't resonate with me anymore. I want to give back to the world." And I went and joined an NGO. So I think the passion allows you to decide, how do I make that switch? Do I have the skills? Do I have the passion? Do I have the talent? Do I have the skills? And we have our master class is, and our free program gives you that window to examine that, can I do it? Do I want to do it? Do I have the strengths, the mindset to be able to shift a career that's different from mine?
Perfect, thank you. And see, and if you have been into individual contributor role and you want to move into team management role, think about what are the skill gaps you have, right? What sort of skills you need to develop, and then have an action plan to work on those skill set, right? See, courage is not the absence of fear, right? Courage is taking action despite that fear. So you may fear whether I'll succeed or not, and that nobody can tell you until you go and do that work. But can you prepare for success? Yes. Can you prepare yourself to learn some of the skills which are required to manage people? Yes, you can do that, right? Cool.
And in today's times, just to share, in today's times, upskilling and reskilling is like the order of the day. There's an average that people are changing more than 2 to 3 careers globally. It's not necessarily a trend in India, but yes, it's coming up now. And so many entrepreneurial ventures people are starting in concurrent with the jobs that they're doing. And so many people are working towards sustainability and making an impact on the world. And if that's what you want, then just figure it out and go for it.
Sure, thanks, Anita. The second question is one of the, again, pre-submitted question was, I'm moving from a comfortable corporate job, 5 days working, flexi time, good leave policy, to a government PSU defense job, and all my comforts are reversed. So this is a very unique situation. Normally we see people coming from private or government jobs to corporate jobs. This is a sort of a reverse situation where somebody is moving to government. And I think it's just a concern whether I'll be losing out or not. So, I mean, look, it's a choice you're going to make. Obviously, there is something you're getting into that government role. That is why you're planning to move there. Whether it's and it's a compromise. Whether you see this as a compromise or it's an opportunity, it's something for you to decide that what is a driver for you to leave this private job and get into a government job, right? What are the trigger points? Is something not working well in your corporate job? And what is that government job really able to do? And not just now, but also from a future prospect, right? And what is negotiable, what is not negotiable for you? So I think that's really the question. Now, obviously, there are pros and cons, and it's something you have to decide what is that you really want. I think that goes to the first question also, right? What is really you want? There will always be give and take, and the challenge is most of us don't want to take the decision. We want somebody else to decide for ourselves, or we want to take the decision, but we don't want to take the ownership of that decision, right? So if you really feel this government job is going to give you whatever you're looking for, take that bold decision, go for it. But then own that decision. That's important, right? Don't wait for somebody to come and tell you what to do. That will not happen, right? That's my take on that.
So, just to share, I'm working right now with a colonel who's had a very success trajectory, and he quit to join the corporate world. And yes, it's taking time for him to adjust to a new culture. And while he thought it would be easier, it's not necessarily easy, because it goes against he's used to a certain structure, and here it's kind of a little bit all over the place. He's used to being ruling with authority, which doesn't necessarily work in the corporate environment. And so he's learning new leadership skills. But like he said, and I'm coaching him, and he said, if I had taken coaching before I quit the army, I would have been in a much better position today, because I would have been aware what I'm getting into. And there's a possibility I may not have quit the army. So I'm going to invite you to think, if you're working in a private sector and you want to move to a public sector, and if you're okay with the bureaucracy or the way things work, then be prepared for it. And if you are, then go for it.
Sure, thanks, Anita. The third question we have is again pre-submitted is, I want to switch into a non-sales role. I've been for 11 years, I have the experience on the field in the sales. And now when I'm looking for a change, I'm only getting calls for branch head roles, but I want to move away from non-sales roles. So look, here's what you have to do. Whether you are a sales role or not, what I would say is take a pause and step back and reflect what skills you've developed which are transferable, right? Whether you are a field job doing sales or marketing does not really matter. There are a lot of skills we develop which can be applicable to any role, right? Like for example, when you're in sales, negotiation, communication with impact, relationship building, these are common skills which you can use in any role, right? So I would say look at those skill sets which are more transferable in nature, and then when you are either applying for new jobs or approaching people, highlight those skill sets and also highlight how these will be relevant in a new role, which is a non-sales role. How can you use relationship management to build relationship at work in a role which is not sales, right? How can you use, let's say, customer empathy can be used to become an empathetic leader in an organization. So I would say think on those lines, and it's a question of how you position yourself, right? If you just highlight all your sales experience, then people will not see beyond that. But if you highlight that while I was in sales for 11 years, these are the skill sets I've developed. These are unique things I've developed, and these could be applied into this new role. I think that's where the story comes out. Anything you want to highlight?
Yes, and I'll just take the same example of the colonel. He's doing just that. He was talking to future employers about all his feats that in the military, and the hiring manager could not see the correlation. But now he's able to come up with a story that links his past to the present. And what leadership skills he took on. How did he make decisions? How did he influence? How did he negotiate? How did he work in conflict? How did he work under pressure? And now he's having conversations.
That's a great example. Perfect. The fourth question is a pre-submitted question is, I have recently shifted to a new role with reportees of similar years of experience. How can I establish myself as a leader? Now, this is a common scenario where, especially when you're moving into lateral roles, you may have people of mostly you'll have people of the similar experience, similar background. Sometimes you will even have people senior to you. That could also happen. Now, the question, how do you establish yourself as a leader, right? Look, you are being hired for a purpose, right? People have seen some potential in you. That's why you are in that role. The question is now, how do you position yourself? How do you showcase the differentiation factor? How do you create impact? We spoke about early wins. That's one way to do it, right? How do you lead discussions? How do you give opinions? Right? All these are different factors because remember, especially when you're coming from outside, you actually have an advantage. Because people who are part of the system, they are very much part of the system. They sometimes don't think beyond the system. They are most of the time they are used to thinking that framework, and they don't challenge the status quo too much. And sometimes, so they are very much rigid in terms of working in a way, right? And when you're coming from outside, you're bringing in a fresh perspective, right? So that's a big advantage, I would say, because sometimes you're coming and saying, I don't know anything, right? Which is a good thing to start off because that's where you can examine everything in detail and you can question almost everything. So you have that freedom and use that freedom to your advantage, right? And you'll be surprised that people who are part of the system, sometimes they don't even know their job that well as much as you would want them or you would like to believe, right? So that's what I say. Use your freshness to the role of the company to your advantage. Learn a lot by curiosity. That's what another thing, like the more curious you are about what's happening, why it's happening, what's the impact, what happens if this not work. That's a very good way to learn and also showcase your leadership, because when you start questioning things, then it also puts people on the back foot and they also go back and say, oh, I never thought about this. And that is also a way to showcase your leadership.
So I'll just give you an example here. A very young girl, she's about 30. She's just joined a very large organization. And she came to me and she says, I want to start coaching before I start my new job, because she was very clear that in 30 days she wanted to make the impact. She was very clear. And in the first week itself, she made an impact. She started getting visible. But the second week, she said, hey, I need to learn how to manage the politics here. Looks like I'm getting popular too fast. And There were some people who were working prior to her in the role, but she identified a vacuum which everyone was complaining about, but nobody was talking about. Because one of our conversations we used to have is, are there any gaps that nobody's willing to take on? Are there any roles? Are there any projects that nobody wants to touch because they're so busy? And guess what she did? She grabbed it. Her boss gave her the go ahead, and now she's working on it. And now suddenly, in about 2 weeks, now this is the third week, she's now talking to 6 stakeholders who wouldn't have spoken to her otherwise because of this new project she took on.
That's a good example. Perfect. We'll take a live question, and I think Sumit had shared one question earlier, is that when we're making a transition, there is a learning curve in every new job or profile. How can we cover that quickly? So Sumit, depending on the type of transition you're having, let's say you are changing industries, that could be a steep learning curve. If you're within the same industry, changing companies, it may not be as steep, but the culture could be very different. So any transition will come with some learning curve, and the way to approach it is various things. One is the groundwork you can do before you take over that role, right? A lot of times you can do a lot of research. You can ask your reporting manager if there is possibility to share something, some projects. So some of the stuff you can start doing before you actually join, and companies today allow that. They actually start sharing some stuff. Your email ID is getting created. So you start receiving emails even before you've actually taken over. So some of that can be, some preparatory work can be done beforehand, reading about the industry, what are the challenges, sort of where is the industry heading, what are the senior leaders in the company talking about, listening to their podcasts or videos. It can give you a lot of insight as to mentally prepare. Okay, this is where the company is headed and this is what is expected. That's one way to look at in terms of preparatory work. The second thing is actually having a very structured learning plan. Now, in some companies it is available. In some companies they don't have, and that's where that active management comes into place, saying, I'm going to create a learning plan for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And I'm going to sit with the team saying, what all overviews I need to have, system overviews, process overviews, team structure overviews, who are the key clients I need to know, what are the key issues which have happened in the recent past, what is the escalation matrix, what is so all these things you can actually put on paper and say, I need to have a plan, and I'm going to spend half an hour, 1 hour, or whatever time frame every day to actually intentionally learn and start keeping myself abreast in these areas over a period of time. That's third, I would also say, look out for a mentor. Again, the sooner you look out for a mentor who's part of the company, and the mentor can help and guide you and navigate you through the organization. And then actively managing stakeholders is also part of the learning curve, because the sooner you know who are the key people, what are their priorities, the sooner you can align some of your work to their priorities as well. I think those are the 3-4 things. And sometimes there could be some skill gap which you might have to build up. And a lot of organizations today have a lot of online learning modules, and they have these training programs. And make sure you sign up to all this relevant training. Don't go overboard in signing everything which is there, but see what is relevant and sign up for that. And again, learn by curiosity. Curiosity will also help you sort of short circuit that learning curve, because the more curious you are from your side, the more answers you're going to get from teams and people around you. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think this was good. I think you covered all bases here.
Okay, I'm going to look at some. Okay, we have Aarti who says, how can we get stability in our job? Like many of them have lost a job during pandemic, how people have managed to switch to new roles. Look, Aarti, I think these are tough times for sure. We have to acknowledge that. Now, stability could mean, again, different things to different people. Some people today are looking for job security. Some people are looking for income security. Some people are looking for both. So it goes back to what is your definition of security. And I think, again, goes back to your relevancy, right? And the value you can add to the organization. So see, if you're really adding value to the organization, if you're really good at your work and you're creating impact, there are very few chances that you're going to lose your job like that, right? So sometimes it's about, instead of saying my company has, I have lost my job, it's a question of how much value you're adding today. So if you have a job today, don't just stick to the basic minimum requirements, because that is anyway, everybody expects you to do that, right? What can you do over and above that to really make sure that people see you out there saying, no, Aarti is somebody who has to be part of my team and who is constantly delivering value and adding value to the organization. There is absolutely no way we can even think of replacing her, right? So that's the approach you have to think, right? A lot of us are very happy to do just the minimum basic requirement of a job, and sometimes we struggle, right? Because there is competition out there.
I'll give you an example, Aarti. I have client, she's a lawyer, corporate lawyer, and she's growing in her career, but she wanted to do something different. And it's a global organization. So they started DNI, diversity and inclusion. And they said within every country, people can nominate themselves who want to be ambassadors for DNI. And so she did. And because she did that, she got known to different people globally. And even her general manager and the MD, who had not necessarily had conversations with her often, were now having conversations with her. And she had influenced a whole team within the organization who were passionate about diversity and inclusion, now to be part of her team. And now suddenly, over and above her busy job, she's doing just that. And so, Aarti, if we are able to create these little pockets of projects which will allow us to be visible and also to demonstrate that we have the potential to do different things. Now, she's a lawyer. Diversity and inclusion comes generally under the HR practice, but she's learning very fast at the same time. And her boss is encouraging her because she sold him on the idea before she took it on. And now she has the stakeholders supporting her. And now they're hiring an assistant for her in her law practice so that she can do both together. There you go.
Thanks. That's a great example. We'll take one last question. I know we are on.
There is Hem, a merchant, who's asked a question.
Yeah, Hem merchant. We'll take Hem's question. So Hem says that if the skills are transferable and I've added those skills and I want to switch industries, but the resume gets filtered out by placement consultants at entry level. Look, so I'm not going to get into the pros and cons of the hiring process, but I'll tell you a few things you have to keep in mind. One is hiring is about fitment. Hiring is not about I've applied and I deserve the job. No, hiring is about fitment. So whether your profile fits or suits the need of the hiring manager, that's very important, because everybody who's applying is, believe me or not, for any job you apply, almost everybody applying has a similar profile. There's very little differentiation happening. That's something for you to understand fundamentally, right? Two is, it is your job to show that you are the best candidate. We flip the around. We're saying, okay, they did not select me. Think why I did not get selected. What I could have done in my resume or the cover letter to make sure I get selected. It's very easy to shift the blame, saying my resume did not get shortlisted. But go back and refer. Why it did not get shortlisted? I know so many people who send general resumes to everybody. Same resume for every job. Now, if you do that, how are you expecting to get selected, right? Because you're not even reading the role, you're not even reading the job description, and you're sending one resume to hundreds of jobs. You're not even gone through the job description, right? So make sure your resume is customized to that specific job description. Now, when you're looking at transferable skills, sometimes it is a matter of using the right vocabulary, taxonomy, right? What are the skills they are asking for in the new job? Have you even studied that? You could be writing everything you've done, but they may not match with that, right? So, for example, some people may say stakeholder management, some people may say team management, some people may say people management. People could be using different terms for the same skill set. So you need to make sure that you're using the language which the job really requires. That's another thing. Showcasing sometimes the examples of those skill sets can be very important, right? Sometimes we just say, I have done people management, but sometimes showcasing a specific example or use case, saying this is where I showcase my ability to manage people in this situation can also really help. So I would say go back and think, instead of saying my resume never got shortlisted, flip that question to yourself, saying why it did not get shortlisted. Did I make a very customized resume? Did I even read the job description carefully? Did I use the right terminologies which are required, right? Did I research enough, or I was just busy applying and sending the same resume everywhere? That's my response to you. And just remember, hiring is about fitment. It's nothing to do with you. If you don't land a job or don't land an interview, it does not really mean that you are less talented or less worthy. It's purely about fitment. The company found somebody more suitable than you. That's really it. Nothing to do with you as an individual or anything wrong with you.
And I think as another piece can be network as much as possible on LinkedIn. Work with recruiters, make yourself present, let them see. If they go on social media, they see the good things about you. What exactly are you talking about? If you're talking about your topic or a subject, or written some articles, or even put some important posts there, even some articles that you have read, that you shared of a thought leader, for example, they see all of this. So while they will check exactly whatever her said, that holds completely true. But your visibility in social media is very critical, because employers go on social media now a lot. So be careful what you post at the same time. Very, very careful in today's times. And if there are some posts that were not kosher, uh, you can drop the post, you can delete them, and start posting something of value of your industry, and you will get noticed. And you can put links in your resume of your LinkedIn profile, and maybe of your blog or whatever you're writing, and that's appreciated. That's an extra value add where you're positioning yourself.
True. Perfect. Cool. So we are at the end of the session. We don't have any further questions. So a couple of things. One is we are going to drop a link to a document which contains all the mistakes we discussed. You can download the document and use it for reference. You can use the document to create an action plan for yourself if you are managing a transition currently. Two is that document will also contain our email address. So if you have any specific questions or queries, you can drop us an email and we'll be happy to look into it. Three is we are going to share the link of a program, as I said, Conscious Career Choices Workshop. It's a program developed in partnership with Naukri Learning. It's a free online course. Do register for that and complete that course. That course itself will give you a lot of answers to the questions you have posted today, as well as in the registration form. So that's really it from my side. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's late in the evening. It's sort of end of day, but a lot of you stayed and a lot of you participated in the discussions. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for Naukri Learning. Thanks, Anita, and for joining us. That's really from our side. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay indoors as much as possible.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your questions. And it has been a pleasure sharing our knowledge with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Niharika?